So, again, thanks for the invitation to be here, and good morning to everybody, not just here, but in the other cities as well. I've been asked to, well, signs of change is the subject that we're looking at right now, and my immediate comment is in the work that I do from day to day. I am trying to work on two areas of signs of change, and that's certainly even in the last week or so. On Friday last, it hasn't broken upon an unsuspecting nation, but there was a conference on Friday in the Parliament that we in the Green Party held. I think it might be the first conference of its kind that the Green Party has held in the Parliament. It was in the Legislative Council chamber, which used to be the upper house. And it was on the title of the conference was A Sustainable Economy for New Zealand. And we had some pretty interesting speakers. David Suzuki from Canada kicked it off with the keynote. John Peet from here in Christchurch gave one of the keynotes. Marianne van den Belt, Associate Professor at Massey University's Ecological Economics Institute, and many others. And it was very well attended, which I think was a very positive sign of change. Inside the Legislative Council, we had the better part of 200 people with a lot of questions asked right throughout the day. At the end, we had a political panel. Title was, and excuse me if I'm being political, I am political, I think. And we tried not to be political, actually, on Friday. We tried to make it as objective as we could in terms of exploring a sustainable economy for New Zealand. But we did have a political panel at the end with Dr. Nick Smith, the Minister, Cabinet Minister, and David Cunliffe, the Labour Party finance spokesperson, and myself, talking about political perceptions of sustainability. And you won't want me to go down that road right now. But it was a good exchange. And I think it was a conference that ought to be repeated. A humble personal view that if we have the chamber, the House of Representatives chamber, literally 20 meters down the corridor, where contestation and adversarial combat in cheerful democratic style is the nature of the game, then I believe we really ought to be using the Legislative Council chamber in a constructive way for a kind of off-record, Chatham House, if you like, exchange between the same people, between parties, on subjects of this kind. And that was, I think it was a success, and I think it should be repeated. The second sign of change, and I'll talk about it a bit more, happens to be on the subject of sustainability indicators. It's a private member's bill that I have submitted into the ballot, so it's up to God's democratic dice as to when, if at all, it comes out and goes on to the order paper for consideration by the House. That's the way we run democracy here. But it's better than not having it because it allows opposition members of Parliament to draft legislation to reflect their views and put it into the ballot. It's called the Public Finance bracket, Sustainable Development Indicators bracket Amendment Bill. And if it comes out, it will concentrate the mind of particularly the Minister of Finance when he or she is presenting the budget in the future. Talk a bit more about that later. Just a question, just a comment, if I may, Susan, about videoing. And I congratulate you on this initiative to have video conferencing throughout New Zealand. It's an extremely good way of cutting down your carbon footprint, and I say that with feeling. It's not new. It's not brand new. We used to do it when I was working at the UN in the Middle East, in Jordan, running a leadership academy there. We, with World Bank money, the United Nations set up this kind of scheme, and I used to link in once. I remember linking in about 10 years ago, the former president of Ghana, Jerry Rawlings, with the head of the Canadian Aid Agency, and about 30 people like this at the University of Jordan, and so there was Ghana, Canada, Jordan, and we almost had a few others. That's global. And is it 4.5 tons carbon per person, I think, on a flight to London and back? So multiply that by 40, and you see the distinction it makes. So I'm all for it. I think it's an excellent idea, and we should be doing a lot more of it. Having said that, it's interesting how complicated life gets, isn't it? Because, and we're doing the same thing in Parliament, you see, a bit in our select committees. If you want to testify in a submission on a bill in a select committee, we can arrange for you to be videoed in from Christchurch. But, and this is a considered judgment by they who are all-powerful in Parliament, you can assert and insist on your right to be physically present. And so I put it to you, how many people here, if you wanted to make a submission on a bill to Parliament and a select committee, would you be prepared to be videoed in from Christchurch as opposed to leap on a plane or drive to Wellington? Anybody want to assert the right, in principle, even if you don't exercise it, to go and be present physically? Just a few. Oh well, probably a third by the look of it. So in light of that, you see, we have to allow the carbon footprint in the name of democratic individual ideals. It's never totally simple and easy. And those who think that you shouldn't even have the right, just if you're in Christchurch, you should be videoed in. Just have regard to the court's remote participation bill that went through the House about 3 months ago and went into law, which, had the Green Party and Labour not intervened with some passion, would have denied the rights of prisoners on remand in prison, including criminal trials, this is where we went to town on, to appear physically in the court in your own defence. The system could make a decision to keep you in a Whanganui prison at a criminal trial in New Plymouth, murder trial, say. You're the defendant, and you couldn't be present in your own place. So these things are not that simple in terms of videoing these days. AV, like any technology, is a double-edged sword. Back to sustainability. Right. For what it's worth, my personal take on this is that sustainability is the supreme political value of the 21st century. If it were otherwise, I would not be necessarily in the Green Party. I might be attracted to it, but that is what giant sucking sound sort of south. It takes me into the Green Party because that political value, for me, is above others. And that is not to eschew the other political values that we all take very dearly. The obvious ones: freedom, equality. Let's just stop there, reduce it to first principles, one word each: freedom, equality, sustainability. They're all of inordinate importance, central to each of us as individuals. For me, sustainability is the supreme one of those in the 21st century, without which you will never succeed in attaining the other two. And of course, having said that, there is a very close interrelationship, even causal, between all three. Freedom and equality are essential to the attainment of sustainability. But that's where I am at, and I actually think that's where society is at in the 21st century. At our conference on Friday, some very well-regarded commentators were disposed to query this, how do we put it, on their behalf, the selling power of sustainability on the grounds it had 6 syllables. I remain unrepentant and unconvinced. I think my 6-year-old granddaughter can say sustainability and understand it arguably better than I can. So I have no doubt about using the term sustainability and seeking to define, and we all know the Brundtland report and theoretical commentary since, to define it in a way that is operational for legislation and executive action, and for that matter, judicial judgment as well.